Chapter 3. The Awakening. Ray's eyes snapped open, his body jerking awake as cold stone pressed against his back. His head throbbed, a dull ache radiating from his temples, and his mouth was dry, his tongue heavy as lead. Blinking rapidly, he tried to focus, his vision swimming as the dim light of the shrine came into view. Ray groaned, pushing himself upright, his limbs stiff and aching as if he had been lying there for days. He glanced around, his heart racing, expecting to see the twisted bodies of his crew, their faces contorted in agony, eyes wide with terror, but the room was empty. Nothing but cold stone and shadows. Confusion gripped him, his mind racing as he stumbled to his feet, his hand pressed against the wall to steady himself. Where did they go? He whispered, his voice echoing off the ancient stone. The memory of their screams echoed in his mind, the shadows crawling under their skin, their bodies writhing as life was drained from them. But as he looked around the room, there was no sign that anyone had been here at all. No blood, no footprints, no bodies. A shiver ran down his spine, the air around him unnaturally cold. Had it all been a dream? A hallucination? He touched his head, his fingers brushing against a lump on his temple. Maybe he hit his head. Maybe that's why he was seeing things. But the memory of their faces, twisted, contorted, eyes wide with terror, was too vivid, too real. He could still hear their screams, still see the shadows curling around them. His phone vibrated in his pocket, a faint sputtering buzz. Ray pulled it out, his hands trembling. The screen flickered weakly, the battery icon a sliver of red. 2 days had passed, 48 hours unaccounted for, lost in the darkness of the shrine. What the hell happened? He muttered, his voice echoing off the cold stone walls. Memories flickered through his mind in fragmented pieces, shadows curling around him, cold fingers sinking beneath his skin, a roar that shook his soul. He could still feel the cold presence lingering, a whisper at the back of his mind, waiting, watching. His eyes fell on the jaguar mask resting on the obsidian altar. Its hollow eyes gleamed in the faint light, its fanged mouth twisted in a silent snarl. Ray's fingers twitched, an instinctive urge to reach out and touch it. The air around it was colder, charged with a strange energy that made his skin prickle. His hand hesitated, hovering above the mask, before he snatched it away, shoving it into his backpack. Whatever this thing was, whatever happened to him in this place, he needed answers, and he wasn't going to find them here. Ray stumbled toward the exit, his legs numb, his muscles stiff. The vines around the entrance seemed to part for him, curling away as he passed, the stone doors creaking open on their own. He shivered, a chill running down his spine as he stepped into the dense jungle air. The sun hung low on the horizon, bathing the trees in golden light, but the air was cold, unnaturally so. The jungle was silent, no birds, no insects, nothing but the whisper of the wind through the leaves. Ray forced himself forward, his body protesting with every step as he made his way back to camp. His thoughts raced, confusion and fear swirling together, his heart pounding in his chest. He tried to remember what happened, tried to piece together the fragments of his memory, but it was like grasping at smoke. He heard the screams again, the shadows moving, the darkness seeping into their skin, his crew writhing in agony as the life was drained from their bodies. Ray shook his head, his breath hitching as he stumbled over a root, nearly falling. No, that wasn't real. Couldn't have been real. But the memory of their faces, twisted, contorted, eyes wide with terror, burned in his mind. The trees parted as he approached the camp, the familiar outline of tents and supply crates coming into view. Relief flooded through him, his shoulders sagging as he quickened his pace. But as he neared the clearing, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Something was wrong. The smell hit him first, a sickly sweet odor heavy and metallic. Blood. The air was thick with it, clinging to his throat, burning his nostrils. Ray's stomach twisted as he rounded the corner, his eyes widening in horror. Bodies were strewn across the camp, limbs bent at unnatural angles, faces frozen in expressions of agony, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams. His crew, all of them, dead. No. Ray staggered back, his hand clamping over his mouth, bile rising in his throat. He stumbled, falling to his knees as his vision blurred, the world spinning around him. They were dead, all of them. He crawled toward the nearest body, his fingers shaking as he touched the man's shoulder, rolling him onto his back. Empty eyes stared up at him, the pupils blackened, veins spiderwebbing across his face, his mouth twisted in an unnatural grimace. Ray scrambled back, his pulse racing, his mind reeling. How could this have happened? His head spun, the world tilting beneath him as he tried to stand. He had to get out of here. He had to find help. Engines roared behind him, tires crunching over broken branches. A truck skidded into the clearing, dust rising as men piled out, guns drawn. Ray's heart dropped as he recognized the faces. Cartel soldiers, all of them, and leading them was Jefe. "You have a lot of nerve showing your face here," Jefe growled, his voice cold, his eyes blazing with fury. He stepped out of the truck, his boots crunching over the dirt, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. "After what you did to my men?" Ray's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? I just got here. I didn't do this." Jefe's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. "Don't lie to me, Cabron. I knew you were trouble from the start." He pulled the handkerchief down from his face, revealing the scar that cut across his cheek, his grin cruel and twisted. "I knew I shouldn't have hired you. Hijo de la perra." Ray's eyes widened as recognition slammed into him, his chest tightening, his hands balling into fists. I know you. You're Hector." Jefe's grin widened. "Took you long enough. Thought you'd be smarter than that, kid. Guess you're just as pathetic as your father." Rage flared in Ray's chest, hot and blinding. His fists trembled, his muscles tensing as he took a step forward. You took my mother. You ruined my family." Hector laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Ruined? She came to me, pendejo. She wanted a real man, not some drunk fool or his worthless brat." His eyes gleamed with malice. "Didn't take long for her to wear out her welcome, though. Got rid of her years ago." Ray's vision blurred, his blood boiling as fury consumed him. You bastard!" He charged, swinging wildly, his knuckles cracking against Hector's jaw. The cartel soldiers reacted instantly, rushing him, tackling him to the ground. Ray thrashed, his muscles burning, his bones aching, but they were too strong, their weight crushing him, pinning him down. Hector loomed over him, wiping the blood from his split lip, his smile widening. "Pathetic, just like your father." He drew his pistol, pressing the barrel to Ray's forehead. "Any last words, hijo?" The shadows stirred. Ray's body went rigid, a cold chill rushing through him as the darkness seeped into his skin, crawling beneath his flesh, sinking into his bones. He heard the whisper again, the voice echoing in his mind, ancient and cruel. "This is the one. This is the man you hate, the one who took everything from you." The world dimmed, shadows curling around his vision. "Give in. Take your vengeance." Ray's lips curled into a snarl, his eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. He felt his muscles tighten, his bones shift, power flooding through him, cold and merciless. He smiled, and then the slaughter began.